The manufacturing debate is poised to flare again, with Labor MPs attending a breakfast seminar in Parliament House this morning with unions and the Australian Steel Institute. They'll be exploring measures to stave off further job losses in the struggling manufacturing sector, which has fallen victim to the mining boom. Yesterday, the government appointed former Queensland Premier Peter Beattie as a special industry envoy. His task is to help local producers secure supply contracts in the resources sector under the Buy Australia initiative. Senator Doug Cameron is a member of the Caucus Manufacturing Committee. He's a former National Secretary too of the Manufacturing Workers Union, and he's in our Parliament House studio. Senator, good morning.
Good morning, Fran.
Before I come to the manufacturing issue, can I just ask you about the Craig Thomson issue? We've heard this morning that the Health Services Union say Craig Thomson should clarify his position publicly. He should tell it how it is. Should he?
Look, I think Craig Thomson is entitled to the presumption of innocence, and there's another very important legal principle that applies as well, and that is the right to silence. He should not be pushed into a position where he might prejudice his case because Senator Brandis or Tony Abbott wants to bully him into making a statement. He has got rights as a citizen of Australia, and if he wants to exercise those rights, he should not be criticised for that.
But as Cathy Jackson pointed out, the members have rights too, and they want to hear the explanation for this. Craig Thomson has earlier denied these allegations, denied he misused the union credit card. Why doesn't he just stand up and say that in the Parliament?
Because this is not just simply about an explanation to members. You know, we have now at this stage, it seems to me, a trial by parliamentary privilege, a trial in the media against Craig Thomson, and as an Australian citizen, he's got certain rights, and he should exercise those rights if he feels that that's in his interest.
These allegations would have unionists, workers around the country scratching their head thinking, what do our union executives get up to with the membership fees, won't they?
Well,
doing damage, don't you think?
I take some exception to that. The trade union movement in this country has got an exemplary record in terms of dealing with its members' money. My union in particular, the AMWU, sort of paid about the lowest wages of any union in the country. We had a proud tradition of ensuring our members were looked after, and I just think that the issue of Craig Thomson is one where he's got an entitlement as an Australian citizen to silence. He's got a right to presumption of innocence, and that's where it should be. You know, and you know, it's okay for Steve Lewis to come on and saying he is going to investigate. The people that need to investigate this are Fair Work Australia and the police if they believe there's an issue, not Steve Lewis.
Let's turn now to the situation facing Australian manufacturing. Peter Beattie has been employed by the government on a part-time basis as an advocate for Australian manufacturing. Now, yesterday, union leader Paul Howes described this crisis in the manufacturing sector as the bleakest time since the Depression. Is the appointment part-timer Peter Beattie enough of a government response in your view?
No, it's not. I think it's a good move. But I think we should be looking as a government at what's happening overseas. And if you look at some of our competitors in the minerals industry, Canada and Brazil, they don't sit back and allow the mining industry there to simply send jobs offshore and destroy their manufacturing sector. And the government, in my view, has got a responsibility to look at what we can do to actually dampen the rise in the dollar, as Brazil has done. Brazil have put a 2% tax on imports and investment coming into the country. They've done that on the basis of trying to stabilise the rise in the dollar to make sure that their manufacturing sector is not affected the way ours is. Countries such as Norway have got other ways they deal with it. What they say is that there must be a component of Norwegian manufacturing in the infrastructure developments that take place, and these are issues that I will continue to pursue, and I'm sure there's many backbenchers prepared to pursue that with me.
Well, the government is resistant to that, and it's resistant to that because it doesn't want to be in breach of international trade protection laws. Yesterday, the Resources Minister, Martin Ferguson...
But just let's go to that point. Canada's not in breach, Norway's not in breach, Brazil's not in breach, and I'm just getting a bit sick and tired tired of people hiding behind WTO rules when it's actually the Treasury and the Productivity Commission and the mining magnates that don't want this to happen because it affects their profits, it affects their multi-million-dollar salaries. They have got an obligation. They used to talk about the triple bottom line. Well, it's about time they looked at one of those bottom lines, and that is the effect on the rest of Australia on their massive salaries, their massive profits. Summit has to come back to employ fitters and boiler makers and riggers in fabrication shops around this country.
Since the BlueScope job losses were announced this week and OneSteel a week or two before, there's been pressure from the manufacturing sector, the unions and the industries, for maximum pressure to be put on the mining companies to do more to buy local steel, for instance, in this case. And certainly there's been allegations that, in fact, there are roadblocks built in for local production. Now, yesterday, Resources Minister Martin Ferguson said that Australian companies were not being locked out of the resources boom. Here's what the minister had to say.
They've not been able to present any concrete evidence. And I can assure you in my discussions with the big resource and energy companies, there is no tender process trying to lock out Australian companies. We've got more contact now than ever, but sometimes we have to teach them how to do their job.
Is he right? Is the minister right? Manufacturers, in a sense, are their own worst enemy, need to be taught how to go and get these contracts?
I disagree with the minister, and I certainly take the view that if the minister is simply accepting the word of the mining magnates and the big miners, then that's a problem. The evidence that's been put to me, or the arguments that have been put to me, are that there is very little steel being fabricated in this country. The steel has not been manufactured here. This costs jobs. And I'm determined, as are a number of Labour members, to make sure that we get a fair share out of this resource boom. Remember, this is a boom. It won't last forever. And in the lifetime of kids that are being born now, we will have no mineral resources left in some areas in this country. And what happens in 80 years' time? We need a broad-based economy, and it's absolutely essential that this government, my government, looks at how we can ensure a broad-based economy. And if that means that we have to take action to ensure that our manufacturing base is maintained, then we should do it, and we should simply not accept what these multi-billionaires are telling us, multi-billionaires that have refused and ran campaigns against a government that is trying to get a fair share for the rest of this country. I think it's outrageous.
But as we try and formulate policies, we need to make sure what is going on. There have been allegations from the steel industry that they're being locked out by some supply contracts because mining companies are discriminating against them, favouring Chinese suppliers. That's built into contracts, changing the specifications so that Australian steel can't apply. Now, the Industry Minister, Kim Carr, says there's no evidence of improper behaviour he's seen. We've heard the Minister, Martin Ferguson, there. Have you, in your discussions and long association with the manufacturing industry and your discussions in the last few weeks with steel, heard these allegations and seen any proof of this?
Yes, I have. I've heard the allegations, and I'm going to a breakfast meeting this morning. I'm sure I'll hear these arguments again. That is the anecdotal evidence that I've seen over many years, and maybe Martin and Kim need to look a bit harder.
BHP yesterday announced a bumper $22 billion profit. It's the biggest in corporate history. Yeah. Given that, is now the time for wealthy miners to be shamed somehow into buying Australian? How would you go about that?
Well, part of the process is for us to debate these issues and do what I'm doing and publicly say that the mining industry has got a social obligation to make sure that they do not crowd out the rest of the economy and we end up with a decimated manufacturing industry while they line their pockets with super profits, massive profits that are unheard of at any time in the history of this country. So we need to make sure that the mining boom has got a benefit for all of Australia, and that means that we should be filling our shops, our manufacturing workshops with fabricated work around Geelong, Newcastle, Wollongong. We can do that. It just takes the political will and the social obligation from the mining industry. Okay, and just briefly and finally, it's looking more and more like the Labor Party might grant a conscience vote to MPs on gay marriage. Would you support that? No, I think we're a bit too premature about that. I think there's going to be a debate at the national conference. I don't know how you say that marriage equality becomes a conscience vote, but these are the arguments that will have to take place down the track. I just simply say that as a modern economy, as a modern society, we need to make sure that everybody's treated equally.
Senator Cameron, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Labor Senator Doug Cameron. It's 3 minutes to 8 on Breakfast.